The US is losing an information war to alternative media outlets, including RT. That's the message from Hillary Clinton to Congress members who are questioning the State Department's $47 billion budget request for next year. And as RT's GGN reports, the US Secretary of State says Washington needs to step up its propaganda efforts.
Hillary Clinton was defending her department budget in Congress. She says a major reason the State Department needs money is because the U.S. is losing the information war. And among those media who are winning that war, Hillary Clinton named RT.
I'll be very blunt in my assessment. Al Jazeera is winning. The Chinese have opened up a global English language and multi-language television network. The Russians have opened up an English language network. I've seen it in a few countries, and it's quite instructive.
Mrs. Clinton says she's leading an effort to spread U.S. propaganda through new media, with Twitter feeds in Arabic and Farsi. But on global stage, the U.S. trails when it comes to television. She basically said the U.S. should step up propaganda efforts and get back, quote, in the game of doing, quote, what we do best. Here is more.
During the Cold War, we did a great job in getting America's message out. After the Berlin Wall fell, we said, okay, fine, enough of that. You know, we've done it, we're done. And unfortunately, we are paying a big price for it. And our private media cannot fill that gap. In fact, our private media, particularly cultural programming, often works at counter purposes to what we truly are as Americans and what our values are. I remember having an Afghan general tell me that the only thing he thought about Americans is that all the men wrestled and the women walked around in bikinis, because the only TV he ever saw was Baywatch and Worldwide Wrestling.
Some 5 years ago, Western media outlets, including BBC and CNN, basically had a monopoly in the coverage of world news. Things have changed a lot since then. More and more viewers across the world tune into various foreign media to get a fresh take on the events. RT presence on YouTube, for example, is a real hit, almost 300 million views. CNN has something like 3 million. Al Jazeera's coverage of the unrest in the Middle East and in North Africa has outdone the U.S. presentation of the events. While many are happy to see this emerging media variety, the head of a U.S. agency that manages the country's government-run international broadcasting has basically called those foreign media enemies. This Wednesday, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton basically confirmed it, saying that the U.S. is at war, at an information war with foreign media.
Now, the US is being left behind in the global media race because the country isn't committed to freedom of speech. That's according to investigative journalist Danny Schechter.
The United States feels on the defensive, in part because it can no longer monopolize not only the terms of, authority in these countries, but also the terms of the debate. There's other information out there. There are other points of view. And those points of view are profoundly damaging to a country that believes that its point of view is the only point of view, or should be the only point of view. So Hillary Clinton one day is defending the internet, the next day the administration is proposing all kinds of regulations and ways to cut off the internet if possible. There's no real commitment to the kind of freedom of diverse speech that we really need if we're going to be in a democracy at home and in a community of nations overseas. We can't dictate what people believe anymore.
Yeah, you went left here. I would go straight back and move back. They just can't. This is insane. In a Prius. Why don't you guys put it in a sports car? I know what you're saying, though. In a Prius. Not everybody can do it. Put it in a Tesla. Yeah, that'd be fun to put in a Tesla.
Yeah, so that's what you get. We get one of those that were a Tesla? Yeah. Okay. Wild. Hauling ass.
Hauling big ass. Hauling big Prius ass.
Yeah, racing in a Prius is kind of an oxymoron. So is it programmed where to go? So we've driven this before and we mapped the obstacles. Just go. And now it's going. But can it jump on the road here as well? Yeah, of course. Right. So I don't know if you heard Sebastian. Yeah. Driven 150,000 miles on public roads or 40 miles. How do you tell where to go?
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Saturday, March 5th, 2011, and I'm Darko. Welcome to part 2 of this news bulletin. Please visit my website, www.ggnonline.com, ggnonline.com. I post all my videos there. You can subscribe via email, or you can follow me. And I just posted a poll on there about unemployment and what you think is the real situation with unemployment. So you can go there and vote. I just posted that. We left off with this article here on Yikes. You won't believe the real jobless numbers, and it's basically saying that the real unemployment is 22%. And next up, we have Obama on unemployment rate. That's progress. So 22% is progress, according to Barry Soetoro. He says that a slight dip in the unemployment rate to 8.9% is a sign of continued progress, but that keeping that momentum going is important to the economic recovery. And what is that going to require? Government intervention into, well, it's not really a free market, just a market. So as China targets 4% rise in 2011 consumer prices, China aims to keep its consumers' price rise at around 4% this year, says the government work report to be delivered by Premier Gen Hiabo at the Parliament's annual session Saturday. He's quoted as saying, quote, "Recently, prices have risen fairly quickly and inflation expectations have increased. This problem concerns the people's well-being, bears on overall interest, and affects social stability," reads the report distributed to the public media before the opening of the fourth session. And next up, we have China's key aim is taming prices as when vows to narrow widening wealth gap. China will target inflation as a top economic priority this year and narrow the gap between the rich and the poor as the government seeks to maintain social stability. Wen says China set for 5 more fat years of growth. China is on course for another 5 years of robust growth, but inflation threatens the social stability. So again, you keep hearing the same thing, which is alluding to what? China could be, I posted it a couple days ago, they are on the list for a collapse, not really a financial collapse, but unrest, civil unrest. And we already have that Jasmine revolution, and any kind of color revolution usually indicates provocateurs or it not being grassroots. China to boost military spending, so here you go. They're getting ready. China has been seeking to increase its defense budget in 2011 by 12.7%, bringing the country's military spending to around $92 billion. And Beijing's buildup stirs fears. Now their fear is starting to spread in Japan and the U.S. U.S. weapon programs won't be cut. So Gates says he expects no major cuts in the U.S. weapons program over the next 2 years. But the assessment hinges on the level of fiscal pressure. So that's right. Billions of U.S. tax dollars are wasted, and yet, there's a lot of these people that are going around saying, oh, screw the people that want their bargaining rights. Forget them, we need these austerity measures and too much government. But, my argument for it is I don't see the government going away anytime. I'm a proponent of stateless society or self-government, and I don't see the government going away because too many people believe in it and support it, and they pay their taxes into it, and you can't even argue them out of their own enslavement, right? So you have all these dollars, billions of dollars wasted, and where does most of it go? Well, it goes to weapons programs, it goes to defense contractors, and they won't cut those programs, they won't stop the wars, they won't shut down the bases, but they will cut your social programs, and they will have you sit there and fight as a Democrat or Republican or whatever, right? They'll have you sit there and bicker and fight each other and kind of produce a class warfare, economic warfare, and then just the real the warfare that goes on when there's the state and benefits, right? People, once they get their benefits, once they get their job, when they work for the government, they don't want to give it up naturally, right? You don't blame them. But that's what happens. Then you have looting of the public purse by these bankers. And then the people that are appointed by the bankers and the court and basically come from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, they come from the quote private sector and then go to the public sector to make sure that that transfer, that flow of money from the public goes back out. And that's called corporatism. That's what we have. So it's not really waste. It's just it's not really intended to be real socialism. So that's my stance on the whole Wisconsin thing. Is I think the biggest issue with what's going on in Wisconsin and the unions in Ohio and Indiana is, and this is the thing, it's being glossed over. And I think a lot of people are just kind of, they're not seeing the bigger picture here, which is people should have, even for the government, they should have the rights. even because in Indiana, they're trying to take away the private union's ability to negotiate, right? And like I said, I'm a proponent of a stateless society, so I don't want unions. I don't want any of that. I'm just saying that if you have a government, you're going to have corporations. When you have corporations, you're going to have people that are going to be taken advantage of. And so unions can help, but now they're taking away their rights to basically negotiate, and they're making it out to seem as if these people that are protesting over keeping, they don't want to pay into it. No, they don't have a problem with paying into it. They don't have a problem with getting cuts. They just want to be able to negotiate, come to the table, because once that happens, once they take away those rights, that's it. It's gone. Those changes are permanent, man. And, just like Rush says, and that's how it's going to be. So now eventually they'll be like, oh, you got to work till you're 80 years old. Sorry, no negotiation. So all these people that call themselves conservatives or neocons or fascists, whatever, I wouldn't just jump on the bandwagon and basically, because this is getting into a heated argument over something that is really being whitewashed in the mainstream media. Like I said, Ohio bill curbing collective bargaining of public employees speeds toward passage. Illinois pension obligations jump to 21%, so they got to pay more into it. 25,000 rally in Ohio against anti-union law. Senate bill passes 5 by 1 vote. And I called this. I just want to point this out, guys. I called this in 2009, the beginning of 2009. I said the Republican Congress will come in after, Obama will do his thing, and then the Republicans will come in, basically in the Congress and that, and the House and that, and they're going to gut programs, and they're going to blame it on conservatism, and they're going to gut programs, and that's what fascism is. It's all about redistributing wealth to corporations and private entities and organizations, and then cutting social programs, and then calling it austerity. That's why the #1 search term last year was austerity. Milwaukee students walk out and occupy building. Then we have cop tackles lawmaker amid layoff threats. Detention order. Tension still running high in Wisconsin. Then we have fired workers burn Indian executive to death. Indian police detain 2 people after an angry mob of fired workers burned to death a senior executive of a steel factory, and officials said. Portugal, Spain aren't likely to see bailouts or seek bailouts. They never have, and I don't think they will, but they could have it forced and jammed down their throats from the IMF and World Bank. Don't worry, be happy. Oh, like Ireland, don't worry, be happy. Unemployment is down, the stock market is up, and the economy is going to be just fine. You can go in there and check that out. It's a pretty good article. I don't have the time to go in there, but link will be posted. People of the Earth prepare for economic disaster. Another good article. ECB officials signal support for higher interest rates as inflation climbs. And then we have consumer confidence. That's not going to come up. MPs call for World Bank shakeup. The World Bank is in a desperate need for reform, which should include ending the arrangement under which its president always comes to the U.S., a parliamentary report has said. And the whole thing about this global government is that it's not going to be a democracy, it's going to be a dictatorship, right? And we pretty much have a de facto dictatorship already in the U.S. The American people just don't want to acknowledge that. EU to grant $20 million to support Asian single market. Spiegel, European Central Bank, wants to unload pigs bonds. Then we have this, top 100 items to disappear first during a national emergency. Go through there, check all this out. It's a pretty good list you would want to have. MEPs vote themselves extra 1,500 euros allowance a month. So look at that. They're giving themselves a higher allowance. Justice Department actively enforcing Americans with Disabilities Act with or without complaints. And I'm not really for that. I covered that in the last video. ICE intelligence chief suspended in fraud probe. And then look at this. ATF lets hundreds of U.S. weapons fall into hands of suspected Mexican gun runners. And what does this do? This justifies and validifies what I just said in my last video. Right, about Calderon complaining to the U.S. government and Obama to crack down on the drug war and the guns coming into the country. And I said, what? That the guns were being confiscated by the U.S. government and then they was being sold to drug cartels, right? So this makes sense. You end the war on drugs, and then you end all the bloodsheds and head decapitations. But they don't want to do that. There's too much money for the banks to be, the money to be made by the banks through money laundering. That's right. Big Chase and Wells Fargo have been caught doing that. Illinois strips gun owners of privacy, and you can join us in part 3 of this news bulletin. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.